Hey FA Nation, Justin Fensterman here, and I got another fantasy football stock watch report for you as we head into week 11 of the fantasy football season. Let's go over which players are trending up and those players trending down when it comes to their production potential for our fantasy football teams. Let's get to the action. First, a few players on the rise. A.J. Dillon. With Aaron Jones sidelined for at least the Packers' next game, Dillon has a chance to up his own stock in the Packers' offense as he gets set up to be the team's main running back against the Vikings in week 11. The Vikings have allowed over 900 yards rushing and 7 rushing scores. They let up over 130 rushing yards per game, which is 6th most in the league. Dillon should easily see 15 carries in this one. Dillon is coming off of a 2-touchdown Week 10, and even though he wasn't great running the football, he had rushed for 4.9 yards per carry or better in 3 of his previous 4 games. The volume will still be there, and that should make him a safe play against the Vikings. Up next on the rise, Rashod Bateman. Bateman hasn't caught a touchdown yet, but he has caught 18 balls on 24 targets in just the few games he's played in, and he's exceeded 50 yards receiving in 3 of 4 games he's played in. He's been targeted 8 times in both of the Ravens' last 2 games. The Bears are up next for Baltimore, and they've allowed the 6th most receiving yards in the league and have surrendered 12 touchdowns through the air. Lamar Jackson throws for nearly 272 yards per game, and he's thrown the ball 41 or more times in both of his last 2 contests. Jackson has thrown fewer than 30 passes just twice this year. Also on the rise, Dan Arnold, the tight end for the Jaguars. Despite Trevor Lawrence's miserable stretch he's on when it comes to his throwing, Arnold has caught 4 or more passes in 4 of his last 5 games. He's received at least 7 targets in those 4 games. For the 2nd week in a row, Arnold received at least 20% of the targets in Jacksonville and has ranked 1st or 2nd on the team in their target share over the last 3 games. The 49ers have been very stingy versus tight ends this season, but so have the Buffalo Bills, and Arnold caught 4 balls for 60 yards against them. Arnold has even been targeted more than Marvin Jones in his last 3 matchups. Now players trending down. Let's start with Cortez Sutton. Jerry Jeudy being back in the mix in Denver is hampering Sutton's production. Sutton received at least 20% of the targets in the Broncos passing game from weeks 2 through 6, and in his last 2 weeks, he's received 7 and 8% of the Broncos' targets. Jeudy received 29 and 25% of those targets in the 2 weeks. Tim Patrick has received a bigger target share than Sutton in his last 2 matchups. Not ideal. As the Broncos head into their bye week, Sutton has received just 9 targets combined in his last 3 games. He hasn't caught more than 2 passes since week 7. Up next on the downslide, Jarvis Landry. It isn't fully Landry's fault that he's trending down, as his quarterback Baker Mayfield isn't the most accurate passer. Landry hasn't caught a touchdown or more than 5 passes in a game all year. The Browns' opposition knows to try to limit Landry as much as possible, and they don't have many other impactful weapons in the passing game, and they are a run-heavy offense to begin with. None of this sets Landry up for any kind of consistency when it comes to his production. He's received 5 targets in both of his last 2 games, and that was with Odell Beckham Jr. out of the way. He's eclipsed 40 yards receiving just once in the 4 games he's played in since returning from injury. Final faller, Mike Davis. After playing in at least 60% of the Falcons' snaps in 7 straight games, he now hasn't hit that percentage in his last 2 games. He was on the field for a season-low 37% of the Falcons' snaps in Week 10. Wayne Gallman outsnapped him in that game. Cordero Patterson is currently dealing with an ankle injury, and that could cost him his Week 11 game versus the Patriots. This could be a make-or-break spot for Davis. We saw Gallman involved last week, and we can expect him to be involved once again. And the Patriots have allowed just 2 rushing touchdowns scored on them all season. Davis hasn't received double-digit carries since Week 5. Gallman carried the ball 15 times in Week 10. That is yet another Fantasy Football Stock Watch, FA Nation. Keep it locked in because you're in the family, which means you're going to win with the family, and we're going to do it all together because a team that sticks together wins together, and that is what we're going to do down the stretch to win our fantasy football leagues. Good luck.